I'm Rob from Exotech. We make fire starters right here in the USA.
Okay, tell me about your shop. Tell me about Exotech and how you got started.
Exotech was started because I really wanted to do my own thing, and I had an idea to create a better fire starter, and that was the impetus for starting the company. And so we started with just your basic fire starter and a match case, and we had that made in China because nobody in the USA was interested in making it. But I was always interested in having it made in the USA. So when we came out with the second version, which was a little bit larger size, we brought it to the States and we had it made by a local shop right here in Georgia. That local shop, the family-owned shop, they were really, really good people, but they got really busy with some medical work, which is really good work. So they ended up just taking the business, and ours would just kind of get left behind, right? We would get late deliveries. So I had a choice. It was send it back to China or it was make it in-house. I had never run a CNC machine before, so it was a big challenge, but I was an electrical engineer and a firmware engineer, so I was used to writing code. So I said, hey, why don't I just bring this to the States and try my best to make it work. So I bought a machine. It was an old machine. It was the equivalent of buying like a machine or a car with like 500,000 miles. It was not so good. I sent it back to the dealer. They worked on it, sent it back to me. I ended up spending a whole lot of money to get it working. But eventually, after about 6 months, I learned how to program the machine, how to set up the machine, and how to get the machine, get the parts on our machine. And that was the start of making our products in our facility right here in the USA.
So, what first brought you to manufacture your own parts?
What do you mean?
So, essentially, I just want to catch the last part of that again.
Okay.
So, the reason I decided to manufacture in the United States.
Okay. Like why I cared to manufacture in the USA? Okay, cool. So the reason I decided to manufacture in the USA is just I loved having that personal connection with the product, and just from experience I knew that that was the only way to ensure that we would have an absolute perfect part. I could go to the machines as they were running the part and see precisely what it was making and make real-time changes. So just because we have a part, and even if a part we've been making for say 4 or 5 years now, like the NanoStriker, even longer than that actually, I'll still make changes to improve the quality as we go. If we find something we can improve on, we'll make changes, and that's what I love about manufacturing. And that personal connection and the fact that you made it, it's a sense of pride.
That's actually awesome. So you mentioned you were a firmware engineer. So what did you do before this?
So I got my start, I was an electrical engineer, and I took a job working for a company down in Tallahassee that did fuels management accounting for like the government. Essentially, so all the jet fighters, all the airplanes that the government had, they would put pay at the pump systems in tanker trucks. And so I did all the engineering and the programming and the hardware design for those. I was part of a team that did that. And then after that, I went to work for a simulation company that did weapons simulators. So we would take rifles, pistols, shotguns, handguns, any kind of, even a shoulder-mounted grenade launcher, and we turned it into a simulator with projection screens, lasers, and hit detect cameras to run ballistics. And it was like a giant video game with live weapons that had been taken apart, made non-live, but they simulated everything from recoil to ballistics, everything. So, but I just got tired of like the corporate environment, and I really just wanted to be more creative. And you're very creative you have a lot of creativity limitations when you work for a big corporation. So, so that's kind of my background as far as how I got into this.
How long did you do that? Like, how long were you doing that?
So from the time I graduated in 2004 till probably 2011. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you had gotten the machines and you had learned everything.
Mm-hmm.
How did you first get started? How did you learn the machining? Like, let's say, like when you got that machine, how did you learn? Like, oh man, I can figure this out. Classes, online.
So I don't want to say so again.
Yeah, anytime you want to just repeat it, because it's all digital. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew I wanted to own my own machines. because I love the process of machining. In some of my previous jobs, I'd go visit the machine shop and I'd hang out with those guys. I was like, this is so cool. And I'd learn a little bit from them. I had a friend who I also worked with, he was a mechanical engineer. And so I'd ask him questions like, how do you make this on like a manual lathe? How do you do this? Or like, what tools would you use for this? And I'd ask him a lot of questions here and there. And then I watched a ton of YouTube videos. Like, so it's like, how do you make this part? Well, watch YouTube. If you watch enough YouTube videos, eventually you'll come across a similar part, or a section of that video shows you how to make a part. Then I started talking to people who own these machines, asking them questions. I started talking to different manufacturers of tools. And eventually when I bought my machine, I made a connection with a gentleman who runs Swiss's, and I hired him after his job kind of on the side, and he came here and taught me. He'd spent like 2 weeks with me teaching me just the basics, like how to set a guide bushing, because that's all done by feel. How to cut off a part, right? All sorts of just little things that are not really in the manual, but somebody has to bring down the information for you. So, and then all the programming was done just I read the manual, I looked at example programs, trial and error. I've crashed the machine a whole bunch, right? Broke a lot of tools over the years. And so it's just trial by fire. But you know, they say if you wanna do something badly enough, you'll find a way. And so I found a way. So the dealer I bought it from had a applications engineer. I had that guy in speed dial. So I'd call him up and be like, how do I do this? And so we'd say, do this and this and this and this. And that really, without him, it would have been very, very challenging.
So what was that first machine that you bought?
The first machine I bought was a Citizen machine, because I knew Citizen machines were some of the best. And I said, if I was gonna buy a machine, I just wanted the machine to work, right? I didn't want to have to mess with it. Well, it was an M32, which their M32 series is their very, very complicated, very advanced machine, but it was an older machine. The reason I bought it was a 32mm machine. It could do all of our parts on one machine. So we could do little parts, we could do big parts, we could do parts with milling and all sorts of features on them. The problem came when I bought an old machine. So the machine was highly capable, it was just very worn out. So I had the capability to make the part, it just took a little bit of extra work to get there.
Okay.
Did you hear that in the video? The squeak?
That's not that big of a deal.
Okay.
You keep saying Swiss machine. Tell us a little bit what makes a Swiss machine different from a different type of machine.
Okay. A Swiss machine is different than a traditional like CNC lathe in that it has, you could call it an extra collet or a bushing. It's called the guide bushing. So that guide bushing supports the material. The material slides in and out of the guide bushing that is fixed in place, and the tool is set roughly 50 thousandths of an inch away from that guide bushing. That just means it's really, really close to the guide bushing, and it means that the material is always supported by the guide bushing. So the advantage there is that think of the material as a giant diving board, right? The longer the material gets, the longer the diving board gets. At the end of the diving board, it's very, very flexible. Well, our length of diving board is always the same, and it's always super, super short, which means that everything is very, very rigid, and we can make extremely large cuts without having to worry about that diving board flexing. So that's the advantage of a Swiss, and that translates into more productivity because you're spending less time making cutting pass after cutting pass after cutting pass.
So how long have you been doing this? How long has Exotech been going on?
My idea for Exotech came in about 2009, like summer of 2009. I started sketching and drawing in SolidWorks, just some ideas that I thought would be fun. I just wanted to make a product. I've had a lot of ideas over the years, and I said, finally, I'm actually going to bring something to market instead of getting to prototype and finishing it. So at the end of 2009, I had the prototype, or I had the production products, and I started a website and started selling them on there. And then we've just kind of grown over the years to where we are today.
So what have you grown to? How many employees do you have? How many machines? How big is the shop? Tell us a little bit about it.
So we just recently moved a couple years ago to a larger shop. So previous to this, we had about a 3,200 square foot shop that we leased out. We needed more space. We didn't have enough space to build even like a single pallet on the dock. So that was a kind of an issue for us. We didn't have a dock height door. There were a lot of challenges. We couldn't put any more machines in the shop. So and the landlord would not give us a growth extension, so we couldn't get any more space. So I started looking at some real estate. It was kind of kicking tires because I didn't think I could really afford anything. And we found this building. It was sold kind of under distress. It was a really, really good deal. And this is 10,000 square feet. And the reason I bought such a big building is because once you move all this equipment,
Okay, so how many employees and machines, and how big is your shop? Where has it, like, where did you start and where is it now?
Okay, do you want me to do that long-winded explanation of where we came from? Like
Yes,
2,400
please.
square feet or 32? Okay.
Yes, because we can reuse portions of it or cut it.
Okay, so I'm going to start with actually at the house, at the basement, because I love the basement story, right?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, okay, you ready? So we started in my basement, or you could say my living room, and that's when we were still buying from China. I'd come home from my day job, right? I'd like pack boxes up and then put them on the doorstep. And then have employees. At the time, I only had about 2 employees, and they'd be in the basement. Well, we kind of outgrew the basement, sort of, but really I outgrew the novelty of working from home and having employees in my own house. Things just got worn out. Toilet handles broke, door handles broke, all the time. So I started looking for some space, but I'm like, can I really afford to rent out space? Because then I have an electrical bill and more insurance and all that stuff. So the market was pretty low because it was, this is right around the 2010, 2011 timeframe, right after the housing crash. But I was able to find a place I really liked, and it was about 3,600 square feet. And they were asking, I don't remember exactly what they were asking, but I contacted the realtor and I asked him, hey, will you guys accept it was significantly lower, it's probably like 30% lower. He didn't think the owner would, and that was the realtor. So he didn't think the owner would, and he went to the owner and asked him, would you accept this? And the guy said, yeah. So I got this fantastic building, we're just getting started for a great rate, and that got us into there. We stayed there for 3 years, and then again, we outgrew it, right? So we outgrew the warehouse space, not really the office space. We just had no room to put any more machines in there. We had no room for building pallets, just no room. We were stuck. So I didn't want to go through moving everything all over again. Had done that, but now we had machines, right? You have to you have to put in new airlines, you have to put in new electrical, and there's a huge expense to that, all the lighting. So I said, I really would love to buy my place, but I really didn't have the money to go spend on a huge place. Turns out the commercial market lags the residential market. So commercial property was still relatively inexpensive from the housing crash. So I started looking at some properties, found some 20 minutes in the other direction from my house. So a 40-minute end-to-end drive from the original shop, but it would only be 20 minutes for me. And it ended up being a 10,000 square foot building. I said, well, that's a little bit much, but it was great because we could grow into it. And if I didn't have to move in 10, 15, 20 years, I'd be happy because the expense to move and the hassle. Your machines are all down, nothing's being shipped. So we were able to buy the building. We had a really generous program with the state of Georgia. They did like a down payment assistance program for commercial business that were in areas that needed jobs. And this area needs jobs pretty badly. So that helped us get into the building. We also got it for a great price because of the economy. There again, the seller was ready to sell this building. So now we're in 10,000 square feet. We own the building, which is awesome. So we were able to make improvements. Like, we like to have a really, really clean shop. So my thing is really clean floors, which is epoxied floors, and lots of lighting. Because lots of lighting, you're making a functional product, right? But that can be checked with gauges. The cosmetic is only checked visually. So how do you check something without light? So we have lots of light, both above and in our inspection areas. So that's how we got to the shop we're in today.
So tell me about employees and equipment.
So, I said so. The equipment we have now, we have several Swiss machines. We have technically two Swiss machines and a non-guide bushingless Swiss machine, you could call it. We also have a brand new VMC we just bought for some new products that are coming out. And we have a chucker lathe, some lasers. So we both have a CO2 laser for laser cutting and can do some laser engraving. We don't use it much for that, but we also have a fiber laser for laser marking. We have a bunch of other equipment that's like for packaging and making candles and assembling presses and that sort of stuff. on an average basis, we usually have about 10 employees. Some of them, a few of them are part-time, most of them are full-time, and we grow as the market changes and as the seasons change. Our business is somewhat seasonal, right? We have 2 seasons. It's usually early spring and then the Christmas time. But we're ahead of that because we're producing for those seasons. So we can grow up to as many as 15, 16 employees during a heavy, busy time.
So when you first started this, how did you get the word out? How do you like, oh, I have this, now what do I do with it?
That's a good question. I can't really remember, but I think I remember parts of it, right? When Exotech first started, we had bought this big lot of product, right? It was what we could afford to buy with savings, but there was a minimum lot size we bought from China, and we had to abide by that. So we had all these products in our living room, and I told my wife, I said, hey, if we can sell these in a year, it was just supposed to be some extra income. There was no business plan. There was no like aspirations of owning my own shop, but we had to find a way to sell them. And so I put together a quick website using Zencart. It was an open source website building software for e-commerce. Before BigCommerce or Shopify or any of those amazing e-commerce websites they have now existed, it worked really well for us at the time. We were able to upload images, customize it how we wanted, put all the products in there, and then we spread the word using the forums. Actually, we would load up or just announce new products that way, or just talk about the products. But really, once the products got out there, our customers really did the spreading of the word. We didn't want to seem like we were artificially promoting the product. We really wanted it to speak for itself. So we sent out a lot of samples. We gave away a lot of samples to influencers. This is even before social media was big. So influencers were like magazine writers, people who were publishing in blogs, anywhere online or even in magazines. The other thing we did is we went to trade shows, so that really helped spread the word. And so it was like a spider web, right? You'd sell the product to, say, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, and they'd tell their friends about the product. I remember the first year we attended Blade Show, we were selling the products, but most of our customers were the other attendees because they saw how cool the product was, and then they'd tell their buddies or show their buddies, and then they'd all come over and buy products. So the first few years of Blade Show were amazing as far as bringing a new product to market. The other way we spread the word, which was really key to our growth, is we hired through a buddy, we were referred to a PR firm. It was actually Rob Curtis. At the time, he was working for Military Times. So I really, really wanted to get published. He had written an article, I believe it was in the Military Times, about the 10 best fire starters. And I was kind of upset, right, in my arrogant early days that we were not in there. Like, why are we not in here, right? We make the best fire starter. And you really have to believe that. Even if it's not, right, it's your product, right? And in order to succeed, you have to believe that. And I truly still believe that, and I believe that at the time. And so I was upset. So I contacted Rob, and he didn't get back to me. I mean, of course I wanted to get an answer, but he was busy. And so I was a little perturbed by that. So I actually saw him at Blade, and I was like, Rob, the guy who never replied to me. And he was like so cool. So we really hit it off, and took Rob to dinner and said, Rob, how do I get published in your magazine, right? Like, I see all these other companies and they're like, how do they do it? Like, tell me, teach me. Like, I wanted to be humble about it. I really wanted to learn. So I just asked, right? Took him to dinner and asked. And he said, well, here's the way most companies do it. They hire a PR firm, right? And that PR firm, they have all the contacts, they reach out and they get you published. And so he said, I happen to know a good PR firm. And I said, oh, okay, great. And it's like 10 o'clock at night. He's like, let me call them right now. So he picked up the phone and called what is now my PR firm. And it was a thrilling experience because things were moving very fast and very exciting at the time. I mean, you have moments that wasn't moving fast, but this time it started to really pick up speed. So we picked up a PR firm, and then after that, within the next couple of years, we were published in Outside and Backpacker Magazine, and in so many of the great publications that you may or may not read now. And so that really brought a lot of eyes to the product, right? So after that, our goal was really to get into REI. I said, I didn't really want to be in every store. I don't want to be in Walmart, all the Walmarts of the world. Our product really wasn't appropriate for that, but there was really one store I wanted to get into, and that was REI. So I came up with this kind of master plan, and it included the PR firm, and it just included being kind and giving samples to everybody, because I figured if they'd seen the product would speak for itself. So every REI associate that stopped by our booth, at Outdoor Retailer, we gave them a NanoStriker. So check this out. And if they liked the product, they'd spread the word. And one thing led to another, and we were put in touch with an REI buyer, and that's how our relationship started with REI. And we still sell to them to this day.
That's a really good answer. Okay.
Sorry, it was long-winded.
That's okay.
No,
That's
are
good.
you kidding me? That's fantastic. So, tell us how you sell your products. Like, online, you mentioned the REI,
Uh-huh.
Big box retailers, you mentioned trade shows.
Right.
How do you sell the products?
We sell the products in a number of ways, and it wasn't part of any master plan. It just kind of happened, right? And we learned about how retail is done. And so when we first came out with the products, we were just selling them on our website. Then people started contacting us, and they were dealers or retailers, and saying, "Hey, I would love to sell your product for you, right? I want to carry your products and buy them from you at wholesale and sell them." And I was like, okay, well, this is a new concept. Really didn't know how much to charge, but I just kind of reached out. I even asked some customers, like, well, what do you normally pay? What are the margins? And I mean, you don't know these things when you start, unless you've been in this business in retail before, which I had never have. So we started acquiring dealers, and then pretty soon we had distributors coming to us and saying, hey, we'd love to carry your products because we sell to those dealers as well. We'll be another avenue for you to get these dealers or these retailers exposure to them. And so we brought on a couple of distributors who were really vital to our success in the retail market.
How much of your, sales are direct online, and then how much do you rely on?
Yeah, sure. When we started, a big portion of our sales were direct, and of course, you don't know what you don't know, right? But the direct sales were fantastic because you get a larger portion of the profit. When you start selling to wholesalers, you give away essentially about half the profit. Or actually, it's probably about 66% of the profit to the dealers or the retailers, whatever you want to call them. But they'll buy bigger quantities than a single end user will. So at the time, our direct sales were much larger. We had just a few key dealers. And of course, we wanted to grow, so we brought on more and more dealers, more distributors, and our direct sales started to dwindle. But we were okay with that. My focus is really, or my expertise is really in design, the creative side, and the manufacturing. It's really what I love. Sales, to me, is a necessary evil, right? You have to sell in order to stay in business, right? So for me, I didn't. If I could have somebody else sell the product for me, it was win-win, right? If I could have dealers who loved the product and as much as I did and would support it and back it, then hey, it's a symbiotic relationship, right? They don't want to manufacture it, and I don't want to sell it, but they'll do it for me, and I'll manufacture it for them. So now a big portion of our sales are actually through retail relationships. Or I should say wholesale relationships. So we sell only a small percentage direct on our website, a large percentage to retailers direct. And then nowadays there's kind of some newer sales channels, and they're, like flash sale sites. We'll do that now and then. And then we also sell through subscription boxes. We have some great relationships with a few subscription boxes, and we'll actually create new products for them. And that does really well to get our name out to people who may have never seen us before. So the landscape's definitely changed, but as a whole, we spend most of our products, or most of our products are sold through wholesale channels.
So how do you market / advertise / get the word out about Exotec fire starters?
Okay. When we started, most of our marketing, or you could say advertising, was done or organically, word of mouth. Social media really didn't exist at the time, but word of mouth and magazines, so publications and magazines, reviews by key people, and blogs. I guess you could consider that a little bit of social media. Now, it's changed, so now most people learn about us through either retailers, like they've seen the product at REI, Bass Pro Shops, MEC, Sportsman's Warehouse, or they've seen our products on social media. So social media is becoming a huge portion of how we spend our time and money advertising. Traditional media, we still do a little bit with that, but it's not as big of a portion of our advertising budget, I guess you could call it. But we've never been a huge advertiser. We've never thrown tons and tons of money at advertising. We always believe the product really should speak for itself, right? So you have a great product, and then word spreads, and then it sells itself. There's some happy medium there, and I think we found it with social media, primarily social media, and using our dealer networks. That's a good question. I don't have any challenges, Jack.
Fuck, then you're doing better than I am.
What was my biggest challenge? Okay, so some of our biggest challenges really are the same as any other business, right? It's cash flow management. So in any small business, cash is king. The moment you run out of cash, nobody wants to loan you any money. But when you have plenty of cash, everybody wants to loan you money, and you don't need it, right? So managing that is super, super critical. And that gets down to a really, really like a microscopic level. It's even like what term loans you take on your equipment. Are they capital leases? Are they loans? What strategies do you use financially? Who are you borrowing money from? What rates are you borrowing them at? So that's really where we struggle the most. There's other challenges with manufacturing, but because we have become almost vertically integrated, meaning we have everything in-house except for anodizing, we're really able to control most of the challenges of manufacturing. And if we make a mistake, we can quickly recover from it. But financially, I would say, manufacturers are not, manufacturers, I would say, are very cash poor because we have to outlay so much money to start production. And so I might start production 4 or 5 months before I've even made my first sale. So I have to hold all that. That money's all tied up for a very, very long time. And then even after I have those ready to sell, I might be carrying that inventory for a long time. Because the worst thing that can happen to us is we run out of inventory, right? It doesn't matter how many orders we have. If we have an order for, say, 500 Titan lights, which is our new lighter, it doesn't do me any good if I can't sell them. And the bank won't take a PO to guarantee a loan. Most banks won't, right? So really we need to be able to have the product in stock. So we tend to be inventory heavy. Lean manufacturing, as far as like keeping your inventories lean or small, doesn't work well for small businesses, small manufacturers, right? There's other things we can do, right? But so we tend to produce large lots so that we can get it out of the way, move on to another product, or even give us a space and time where we can develop new products and not have to worry about, is this machine held up by prototyping because we need to make production. I would love to be able to make 200, 300, 500 lot piece production runs, once every month or whatever, but that's just not possible in reality. You agree?
Really? I agree, but it's not, because sorry, I'm already stitching things because you're not the only person to be saying this, so this is great. This is a cool theme that we can carry over across the whole thing. I like this. Okay, so this is not on paper, but you had mentioned the vertical integration and the advantage of it.
Vertical integration is when you bring everything essentially in-house that you do. So the best way to think about it is the raw material comes in and the finished product gets shipped out. It never leaves your building. That's 100% vertically integrated. Most companies are actually going away or have already gone away from that. For whatever reason, their claim is that it's easier and cheaper for them to send out those secondary or tertiary processes outside. There's a lot of cost accounting that goes into justifying that. You can look at it however you want, but our personal experience is that it is far more efficient, and which means more profitable, to keep everything in-house. The moment something leaves your building to be done by a third party, it could be coating, painting, it could be anodizing, it could be deburring, it could be anything, right? You have no control. So you're at the mercy of the shipping company you used, right? Damage in transit. So let's just say you spent 30 days manufacturing something and it gets damaged. Well, you have to start all over again. You're at the mercy of that vendor to not destroy the product. We've had thousands of products destroyed by a single vendor in a single process. They left it in the etching tank too long of anodizing, so it shrunk the product down too small and nothing was within tolerance. And then you're really at their mercy for time. So you spent, say, 4 weeks in a production run, and then they take 8 weeks to do their process. And when their process is only 10% of it, it really questions, like, why are we sending this out? Can we bring this in-house? What's our limitations to bring it in-house? So we just learned that keeping all that, as much of it in-house as possible, leads to quicker turn times, a much, much better quality product, all of that even at a lower cost. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. So currently, we do everything in house. So the raw aluminum comes in, it goes to our machines, it gets turned into the finished product. It goes to the deburr department, it gets deburred. It goes to the inspection department, it gets inspected. Then it leaves for its only one time. It leaves to go to our anodizer. We've worked very hard to establish an anodizer. We've sampled with tons of anodizers. We've worked very hard to establish an anodizer. We even have more than one anodizer to ensure our supply chain. And then from there it comes back, and after anodizing it gets inspected again, then it gets laser marked, assembled, and then we do all the packaging, and we pack it in boxes and we ship it. But all those operations are done in-house, so the only thing it leaves for is that coating. If we have an uncoated product, let's say we're making a titanium version of our products, that never leaves the house because we don't have any operations that necessitate third-party vendors. So in the future, we would like to bring the anodizing in-house, because if we can bring anodizing in-house, we can go from, say, an 8-week cycle time, which means start to finish, how long does it take you to make a product, down to a week. Because literally the products will leave the machine shop, go straight to deburr, from deburr they go straight to anodizing, and we could be shipping within a week or two, maybe even as soon as the same week. So material arrives, gets machined, goes through all the processes. It could literally leave as a finished product that same week, which is an incredible improvement of efficiencies. With the anodizer, what you have to know is it's instead of it becoming a sequential process, it's a batch process, and batch processes are very inefficient. So we have to wait till, say, we have 500 or 1,000 parts to send to the anodizer, and that might take a week, right? But if we have products coming off the machine, they can literally go in single file to the anodizer or our anodizing department and get anodized. And there are still batches there, right? We might have to rack 50 at a time, but we don't have to rack 500 at a time, and that keeps everything flowing well. So that's the advantage of vertical integration, and we found it works really well for us, and I think you'll find in the next decade that the manufacturing that is happening in the USA will become vertically integrated all over again. Everything's cyclical, but I think it's going to all come back, and people will try to vertically integrate as much as possible. Lean manufacturing is taking the waste out of a production process without sacrificing the production process. So a great example of that can be related to what we do every day. So with our anodizer, our machine is, let's just say it's making one product every 5 minutes, right? So we're queuing up these products. Every 5 minutes we get another product, right? Well, we can't just send one product at a time to our anodizer. We have to batch those. So we go from a sequential process, one at a time, to a batch process where we might batch, say, 500 and ship them to the anodizer. That would be considered not lean, right? Because you're wasting all that time in a batch process, especially when you go from sequential to batch to sequential. So the anodizer is going to take those 500 pieces, and he can't run them all at once. He might only be able to run, say, 50 at a time. So instead, the more efficient way is to batch 50 at a time, send them to him. He racks 50 at a time, and that would be more lean. But what we found is that it's very difficult for a small business to be lean. Some of these practices, especially when you have products like ours they don't cost $5,000 each, right? It's very difficult to implement some of these processes, mostly because we're not big enough. So in order to, say, get just-in-time deliveries, your vendors have to deliver product on time to you, and there have to be penalties to delivering product. Well, we don't buy enough for them to care about, say, delivering on time. So they may just say, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't deliver on time, not realizing how that impacts, or not caring, right, how it impacts our business. Because everything's in business is really driven by money at the most fundamental level. So let's say you have GM, right, and somebody doesn't deliver in time. Well, there's huge penalties, right, to not delivering those products in time, because they have a just-in-time program, right, and lean processes that rely on those steady deliveries. So in our world, when we used to order just in time, we'd end up having huge back orders. So we'd be without product for, say, 30 days. Well, without product, you're not receiving any money. So you're losing sales, because they'll only make so many back orders before they kind of hit they level off, and people will just say, well, I'll wait till it gets in stock. So you're losing a lot of orders. So we just found through trial and error, through testing this, that it was better just to stock the products in some raw form. Say you stock them in the raw aluminum, they're machined, but they're not anodized. And then as your inventory gets low, send out a batch of that, because the longest cycle time for us is the setup of the machines, because you may have another product in the machine, you have to wait for that to finish, then you have to go and set up, and our machines take a lot longer to set up. They're very productive once they're set up, but they take a long time to set up. So for us, many of the lean principles don't work, but a lot of them have worked in some hybrid form, so we implement portions. We pick and choose what really works for our business.
How do you find employees?
Good question. So many small businesses,
If you start there.
yeah, many small businesses struggle to find good employees, and we're right there with them. The best way we found to find employees is really referrals. So some of my best employees, and I would say most of my employees, have come from a referral, either another employee, a friend, or a family member. We've tried everything. We've tried putting ads on Craigslist. We've tried temp agencies. We've tried hiring firms. We've tried just putting ads on, say, like CareerBuilder or Jobs.com. But really, those employees aren't usually a good match, or they don't last, or they don't stay. But the ones who have come in through referrals have been just amazing employees, and that's how we built the team that we have now. Most of them have been with us for almost 5 years, which is a good portion of the company history.
Have you worked with, collaborated, teamed up with other people with what you consider in the industry or across industries?
We have. Well, how do I rephrase that question? Okay, I got it. Collaborations are becoming an important part of this industry, right? So a lot of companies are working together to make a better product, whether it's just, sometimes it's just making a couple changes here or there, and other times it's just totally reinventing a new product. Our first collaboration was with a company called Havalis Knives. So they make great bushcrafting tools, and we had noticed at the Blade Show that they had a fire starter, but Steven, the owner of Havalis, was making them by hand, so he wasn't really able to make enough of them. The capsule he was using that was glued into the fire starter was not the highest quality. It was imported from China, but it was all he could get. So the effort was there, right? The product was a great idea, and we just approached him and said, hey, what do you think if we did a collaboration? We'll improve that product, incorporate some of our trademark features, which are like the threaded rod, and just the look and the feel and the function of our products, and we'll put your name on it too. And he said, I would love it, let's do it. So after Blade, we kind of threw that together pretty quickly, because we had already done most of that. We just changed the form factor and made a new product, and that's how the fire rod was born. Moving forward, we have some collaborations in the works with some well-known, recognized companies that will really prove to be beneficial for both companies, because we're able to share our customer base with them and theirs with ours. So just through that collaboration, you have exposure to many, many more customers, and you put two minds together that are not like. So if you're collaborating, let's say you're collaborating with a knife company, well, they make knives and you make fire starters, and so those two minds are really different, but you can come together and say, hey, here from our perspective, we use and we test knives. This is really what we could use from a fire starter, and vice versa. The best example of that is to strike a fire starter, you typically use the spine of the knife, which is the back side, not the sharp side. You don't want to dull that edge. Many knife makers are deburring the backside of the edge. Well, that deburring makes it impossible. So, we convey to knife companies that, hey, that needs to be ground to a 90-degree sharp. Or even, we've been asked many, many times, they'll put a little notch, like a little half-moon notch in the back spine of the knife to straddle the diameter, right, of the rod. But just through testing, that proves to be less effective than just a straight edge. So we've told them, when they've asked, they said, hey, what do you think about this fire rod notch or this fire starter notch? We say they just don't work as well. There tends to just be less contact surface with the rod. For whatever reason, it produces less sparks. So those are some of the collaborations that we've worked together and kind of how we've communicated with other companies.
Okay, that's actually good. Okay, we're gonna kind of go over it, and this one's just going to be a little bit of short, like it's a little, but what do you think of collaborations going forward within industry or within manufacturing? Does that make sense? Just like I like collaborations. I think across manufacturing, your words, you know what I mean. But like, just a 30-second.
Okay. I think collaborations are really important for the growth of any industry, right? Specifically our industry, because somebody can take an idea that they have and leverage the knowledge that somebody else has and the capability that somebody else has to make that product come through without having to go buy all the equipment and learn how to use that equipment. So perfect example is a knife company coming to us and saying, hey, make us a fire starter. Well, we already have all the knowledge to make one. We have all the equipment to make one. They're used to making flat stuff and we're used to making round stuff, and they have the equipment for that. We have the equipment for this, right? Same thing if we want to make a knife. We have zero equipment to make a knife. We have not even one piece that would make us a knife. So we would go to a knife company and say, hey, make us a knife to our design, and then we're utilizing their capabilities, their manufacturing, and their knowledge, but it's to our design. So without collaborations, that doesn't exist. The industry moves a lot slower, and there's a lot less really neat stuff that's coming out of the woodwork.
That BMC might be useful.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're touching on it really well. So I'm going to ask a slightly different version of this.
Sure.
Right. What are some of the benefits of like as a company? Where do you benefit like from collaborating? You had mentioned the mind. You could please, the two minds. So feel free to mention. But again, just like a couple sentences on. So.
I mean, I kind of already covered that.
You did. I know.
Okay.
I'm asking again.
Yeah. Do you want a shorter version? I'm
Yes.
trying to see what you're looking at. Okay.
Yes, but you had also said, hey, so like, so you had mentioned it in multiple separate parts, right? I guess I'm asking for you had mentioned, right, like customer or across different thinking, design, equipment. Could you do a
Consolidated version?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. The benefits of collaboration are really having two minds on one product, right? The equipment, you get to share equipment, so one company can utilize the other company's equipment. And then just having that trade secret knowledge of how to make a really, really good product. So a knife making, that might be the heat treat, right? And fire starting, that might be, hey, how do you thread a rod without burning down your machine? So there's all sorts of things you can leverage by having that collaborative effort.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm trying not to like put words in your mouth is what I'm trying to do.
No,
I'm trying to
that's
ask
good.
you to be
Yeah.
vague enough because you're.
I didn't
the
know
way
if you
you're
wanted a
saying it is
longer
really good.
one
No,
or a shorter one.
Yeah, no, you give excellent detail. So, okay, so we're moving on because that was seriously fantastic. Okay. What are you most proud of in relation to any of this?
On a micro level or a macro level?
That's up to you. Everybody
Okay.
answers this one differently.
Right. Okay. There's a couple different ways I could say it, but how do I start it?
One of the biggest challenges I faced, one of the things I've overcome, something that we're done that we are extremely proud of, something that I
Right.
never thought we'd get to accomplish.
Right. Okay. What I really love about doing what we do here is that you have an idea, and through say many months or even years in some cases, you make that idea come to reality. So in your mind, you're just dreaming up new products and new things, and then before you know it, you have a physical product that you created from nothing. So you took a piece of aluminum, solid block or a solid bar of aluminum, and you made it into a product. And not only that, along the way, you created jobs. So you're employing people with your ideas. And I find that like super fascinating, and I just love the process of creating new things. Just short, right? Short and to the point.
It's great.
As far as maybe the product, as far as a particular product that you're most proud of?
We're actually we're gonna cover that.
Oh,
I've
okay.
already-
I
so-
thought that
no,
you
no,
were doing
good,
good.
good.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So, but like we're going through this list, and I've got the notes. We're gonna come
Got
back
it.
to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
So
good.
that's excellent. No, good. Thank you. So, where do you see your company going, or where do you see the direction, or any of this over the next forward?
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna delete this. So,
I'm gonna accumulate all of these into a short reel. No, I'm just kidding.
so, yeah.
Hey, I do likes.
6 or 7 years ago, when we were kind of in the really the beginning, but the fast moving beginning of our business, fire starting was really a big deal because there weren't many creative options for fire starters. So we kind of came on the market with something new that was wildly different, right? The question was, would people pay more money, significantly more money, for a significantly better product that was just to start fires? And we proved that they would. And so that we kind of set up the market for a higher price point. So a lot of, you could call them competitors, but just really a lot of other companies, mostly smaller makers in their garage, came up with new products. So we were really able to change the market with our fire starter. But now there's just so many fire starters out there, including what we have to offer. We can't just continue to create fire starters because at some point you start cannibalizing your own market, right? So going forward, we've noticed a change in the industry. The industry is changing really with a lot of just really neat everyday items. And so a new segment has been created over the last, say, 5, 6, 7 years. It may have existed before then, but it's become very popular. It's called EDC. That stands for everyday carry. So that's everything you carry on your person. Typically men carry, say, a pen, a knife, a fire starter, a lighter. Some people carry a gun. It could even be a watch. It can be jewelry. It's just what you carry on your person. So moving forward, you'll start seeing products from us that really embody all of our beliefs, but into a product like an EDC product. So you might find that we make a pen down the road, right? You might find that we make jewelry. It could be anything, but it would be something that somebody would carry on their person, right? That really hadn't had a lot of attention, or we have a new idea, and we're taking our values and applying it to that product.
Give me a short, what is EDC?
Okay.
Like a 20, 30 second, what is EDC?
EDC is a kind of a new acronym that's come out of the woodwork, I'd say, in the last about 10 years, or at least that's when I became familiar with it. EDC stands for everyday carry, and it's something that you carry on your person from a day-to-day basis, and it can change in or out, but for a man, for example, that might be a watch, a knife, a fire starter, a pen, a keychain, right? Anything on your keychain. So those are items that really embody the acronym EDC.
What's the thing that keeps you up at night?
I don't know, that's a good question. I mean, I've kind of stress free now, right? Like I just don't let anything bother me, but
Okay, whoa, hey. Nobody has ever said that. So, like, if you want to say, a lot of businesses, have things that keep them up at night. We
Yeah.
actually got
Maybe
to
you
the
could
point.
talk about what used to keep you up at
Yeah,
night.
and then
now,
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't stress about that anymore. I'm in a different
Yeah.
place. Blah, blah, blah.
I mean, there's been a lot of things over the years. It's hard to really hit on one thing. It depends on where I was in the process. Like that machine kept me up at night, right? The old machine. Yeah. Let me just hit on that.
Why we now?
Yeah, right. Okay. So, I mean, I'll start from not having product to having the machine to not having a good machine to going to where we're at now. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do stress.
Oh,
but
yeah.
All right, you're good.
how do I start that?
A lot of business owners. So.
Maybe just
Business
stress.
is inherently stressful.
Yeah, that's just gonna. Yeah. Okay.
This business has got to be stressful for most people.
Right. But for me, no.
Well,
No, I mean it is stressful.
went through
It's not
those.
like highly stressful,
Yeah,
right?
You went through those and know how to cope with it. Now you know how to manage
Right.
it. Now you
Right.
Stress is
Yeah.
different for you.
Most business owners are notorious for high stress, right? So there's all sorts of things that can be stressful, especially in manufacturing, whether it's your machines, your employees, your cash flow. Our biggest source of stress when we started was just not having product. So we went from not having product to buying a machine that was very, very old and needed a lot of work. And so on probably a weekly basis, I was having that machine go down for maintenance issues, and that became a huge, huge point of stress with me. It was so bad that my wife would know when I came home if it was a bad day with the machine because it was written all over my face. even worse than that, I just debated giving it all up because it was so stressful. I just couldn't handle it. Eventually, I just promised myself and my wife that once we had gotten to a certain level, we would just sell that machine and replace it with a new machine. And we did that. Once we got the new machine, everything changed. Then the new machine just runs. It's easier to set up. It makes better parts without having to really, really work at it. And so a lot of those stressors have gone. I would say really a stressor that stays, but it's not a big stressor, but a stressor that stays is money, right? So you have to be very, very careful about how you spend your money. You don't have a full-time accountant telling you, hey, here's your budget for this, here's your budget for that. You have to be able to manage money kind of on the fly, seat of the pants. You're looking at numbers, but those numbers don't always give you the whole picture. So making sure that you're spending your money when you need to and you're not spending money when you don't need to is an important part of managing the stress once you get past all those other stressors that we have. So, but for the most part, day to day, I would say we try to keep a pretty stress-free business. I wouldn't be here if it was so much stress that I couldn't manage it, right? I just try to run a mostly stress-free business, and I try to keep my employees stress-free as well.
Okay, that is a really good answer. In fact, it's so good that I'm going to go and dovetail on it. You had mentioned the old equipment, and you kind of went into the whole, getting the right equipment and how it made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
As far as like the old machine goes,
In other words, how choosing, yes, sure, and also, hey, choosing the right equipment saves you from having to murder somebody at various, you know what I mean?
yeah, okay. The manufacturing of our products can be done a ton of different ways, and probably of those, say 100 different ways, there's only a few right ways to do them, and by right I mean cost effective, right? Where you can produce a high quality product for a price that the market will be willing to bear. And so when we started looking at and shopping for machines, and most of my shopping happened right on YouTube, so I'm looking at all these different machines and how I can make the process work, we came down to Swiss style machines. So we make small round parts that tend to be long, and that's what a Swiss does extremely well. So having the right machine means going from, say, being able to make 100 parts a day to being able to make 500 parts a day. And that in and of itself leads to less stress, better productivity, right? Better profit margins. So really having the right equipment is so important. So not making a quick decision of what to buy, doing lots of research, going to trade shows and talking to people is key when you're looking for manufacturing equipment.
That's fantastic. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh my God, I don't know. I've gotten a lot of it, right? I've gotten a lot, so I'll hit on one that's more recent, right? So most business owners are dreamers. So, we're dreaming of the future. We're dreaming of what we could be in the future or where we want to be. And so, we don't necessarily take in the present. You get somebody coming into your shop and looking around and saying, wow, this is a really nice shop. And all we see is, say, the debt we've acquired, right? Or the work, or all the things we still need to do, or how messy the shop is. We really take a lot of things for granted. The best piece of advice really I've ever heard, or more recently what I remember, is don't wish away the present. So, live in the now. Don't live for the future. So don't think of things as like, oh, hey, I can't wait to get to the 5-year mark because all my machines are paid off and I'll actually have money. Because that will change, right? You'll probably be buying, say, new equipment and you'll have the same debt, or whatever the case may be. You don't want to wish away the current, because the current is when it's happening, and in the future you'll go back and look at the past and say, man, I really miss when it was, say, this simple or this basic or this small. So just live in the now is probably the best advice I've been given more recently. You like that?
I really like that. Oh my God, and that is so true. It's one of the things that Peachy and I, I love planning for the future, but I really enjoy what we do.
Right.
And Peachy is she gets very focused, and sometimes I'm like, you realize you're doing just fine.
Yeah, right,
You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm the opposite, like I'm Peachy and you're my wife, right? Yeah, so.
Yeah. Okay. What's the best advice or message that you would give to somebody else who's dreaming about starting a manufacturing business or any business or anything, or or is like watching a YouTube video going, wow, that's cool. I'd like to do
Yeah. I almost said so. The best advice I'd give somebody else, and it doesn't matter if you want to start your own business, if you want to say get back in shape, if you want to learn a new skill or change jobs, is really to put everything you've got into it. The only people who succeed are the people who give it 110%. If you don't want it wholeheartedly, it will never come. But there's a lot of books out there written, and basically the premise comes if you embody it, if you think it, if you do it, if you live it, right, eventually it will come to you. So it's all encompassing. It could be how much money you want to make, right? So, but also surround yourself with people who are like-minded to what you want to achieve, right? So if you want to be a successful business owner, make your friends business owners, right? And ask them questions, and they'll help you along the way, and they might even make you their partner. So as far as advice goes, just give it 110%. Be totally, fully dedicated to it, and you'll succeed.
Okay. What keeps you motivated? What keeps you going? What keeps that fire burning inside?
That's cheesy.
See, man, you're the one with the
I know, I love it. My flame.
Well, I like it.
Money. No, just kidding.
Like, we're keeping that.
Yeah. So I get most of my motivation through creating really, really cool stuff. So I love to make a product or design a product, make it happen, and then you really bring it to a show. Like, let's say you bring it to a trade show and people love it, and that's just solidification to the fact that it's a great product. Now, I'll never say that when I design a product that this is an amazing product. It's going to be an amazing product and we're going to sell tons of them, because I don't really know, right? So we do like kind of a trial by fire. We just make something that we would want or that we think is really neat, and then we manufacture it, launch it, and see what the customer feels. Do they agree? Do they not agree? If they don't agree, we make changes to it or we discontinue it. Luckily, we've been successful enough with most of our products that they're still on the market.
Perfect. Believe it or not, that first quote was excellent, because it fits into whatever, like, I've been talking, pre-doing this stuff, and a lot of business owners are like, we have to get paid to keep the doors open. So it's
Right.
I'm glad you actually mentioned this, because, okay. All right, now this is, well, which one do we do first? Let's do this one. So you were talking about you went from China to US manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me a 30-second, like, I don't want to say elaboration, but just a 30-second summary on, we originally started China and now we're here.
Right.
And like, why, was there benefit? Yeah, here's how we see any of that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay. So, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. We started manufacturing our products in China, the first two products we made, because we really had no choice. But all along the way, I really wanted that sense of pride and that control that comes from making things on your own. And I think you probably agree that most business owners are control seekers, right? It's really how we make a perfect product and ensure that our livelihood is secured, right? But the other side of it is that China just couldn't make our products with the quality we needed. So we would constantly battle with the same quality issues over and over again. And I realized that we were never going to get ahead. Meaning, if I design a new product, there wasn't enough of my bandwidth to coach my manufacturer as to their failures making our product. So we were gonna have the same 2 or 3 products forever, because it took 100% of my time, believe it or not, just to coach them all the time on do this, do that, don't do that, even if we sent them a perfect engineering print. Best example I can give is the NanoStriker, our first product. I called out a 1032 thread on our threaded rod. They made it an M5, and I didn't discover it because I was early days. I didn't have thread gauges due to cost reasons or whatever. But I didn't discover that probably for 2 or 3 months after they delivered it, and we had already shipped them out. And because the rods are interchangeable, I couldn't just switch to 1032. So even to this day, we discontinued them, but they still have M5 rods.
Okay, that's really good. So we're gonna hit it again and give me, and so that was perfect, but I want another short one on, here's the advantage of making it in the US
Okay.
or in-house.
Sure.
Either or however.
The advantage to manufacturing in-house is that you can make as big or as small of a lot as you need. You can control the process, you can control the quality, you can change it real time, but you can also spread out that cost. So instead of buying a lot of product, let's say you're buying 1,000 products, right, and each one's $20, $20,000. You got to send $20,000 to China right now, right? Whereas if I'm making the same product, I buy the material and it takes me a few weeks to machine it, right? And then I might wait to anodize it. So I can spread that cost over a much longer period of time, also at a lower cost, which really, really helps with cash flow. And that's super, super important. Cash flow is king for a small business.
Cool, that was a really good way to explain it, we'll be able to stitch it, thank you. Oh, fuck, we're gonna go over that. That's gonna be closer, we're gonna have to do a chain shot, but this is this one. Okay, what do you do outside of manufacturing? Hobbies, fun, like, what else?
Okay. Back in the day when I started the company, it was early days, I really had no hobbies, I had no free time. So I was doing Exotech, I was working a full-time job, and I was even doing engineering design consulting on the side, so I kind of had 3 jobs. I'd work weekends, I'd work 20, 22-hour days. I would literally go to sleep when the sun rose, sleep for a couple hours and go into work. It was brutal. I think you can do it one time in your life and that's it, and usually in your 20s, right? And I was in my 20s. I could never do that again. But that meant that we had very small social life, or very, very limited social life. It came to the point where once things settled down, I looked at my wife one week and I said, what do normal people do on the weekend? Because we were sitting on the couch, I'm like bored out of my mind, like I just want to go work because I don't know what else to do, and it's really all I knew. So as we grew and got had more employees and just the stress levels were reduced and I didn't have to work so many hours, I started rekindling some old hobbies. And for me, I'm very much an adrenaline sports kind of guy. So now I take an annual trip out to Salt Lake City to go skiing with some friends who've been doing it for 20 years. But I'm a car guy. I don't have a whole lot of time to work on cars, and I don't necessarily like turning wrenches anymore because I do it every day, right? So, but I still love cars. So, but really my biggest hobby now is what I used to do when I was younger, before I went to college, which was motocross. So I'm kind of reliving my youth in a dangerous kind of adrenaline-fueled sport, and that is motocross. And it's kind of like, so as a car guy, I would love to race, but racing is really a rich man's sport. Motocross kind of is a poorer version of that, you could say. It still can be kind of expensive depending on what you do, but you get the same thrills and the same reward. So maybe you hit a jump that you hadn't hit before, right? Or maybe you pulled a faster lap time, or maybe you smoked your buddy, right? I mean, those are all things, just a lot of fun. And the camaraderie that goes with that, right? So when I was starting my business, I didn't really have a social life, but now we have this huge group of guys. We all meet at the track every weekend or every other weekend, and we ride and we have a blast. And so that hobby really is what I look forward to every week at the end of the week.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, we're gonna add one more, just because you're nailing a bunch of cool stuff. And you were talking about like skills and specific skills, so most important skill or generalist skills, or what skills do you feel are essential for somebody who runs a business, runs a manufacturing business, wants to get off their ass and do something?
Okay. Yeah. So one of these days I'll learn.
Well, we don't hear them on camera, so you're good.
A lot of business owners have the same skill set, really, but and you can name those off, and there's some specialty skill sets, right? So I come from a programming background, I come from an engineering background, but that you don't necessarily need that, say, to start a manufacturing business. There's one skill which I say I have, maybe is my best skill, right? And probably more so than most people, and it's tenacity, right? It's a non-specific skill, but it makes you successful at whatever you put your mind to. So tenacity basically means you never give up, right? No matter what happens, you will finish it. So if I commit to somebody, so I've made some parts for other people, and I committed to making the part, no matter how difficult it gets, no matter if I'm making money or not, I have committed to you, and you're relying on me to deliver that part, say in 30 days. So no matter what, I even have to buy tooling at a loss, I will commit and I will finish that product, and that's the tenacity, right, coming out and showing. And so when I had that machine that was really a jalopy, right, for 6 months, the only thing that got me through it is not because, or not if I'm a smart guy, right, or not if I'm good at programming, or not if I'm good at setting up a machine, right, and not even who I know. It was just the fact that I was unwilling to give up, and that's true for anyone, any business owner, or anyone who wants to succeed at something challenging. You have to be tenacious.